Hi, folks. Welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Well, praise the Father. Another wonderful day to be alive. Weather is it's a little cool, a little gloomy. We've had pretty rainy weekend. We did not get too bad of flooding here. In fact, we really didn't get any flooding. We just got a good soaking. I don't know, probably 3 to 4 inches, depending on the area. I know south and west of us, they did get significant amounts of rain and had some flooding issues. But overall, I don't think it was quite as bad as what was being predicted. You know how the weather is. They like to, here lately in the last few years, they like to really hype it up. Every time there's a storm coming through, it's the storm to end all storms. We're all going to die. It's the worst flooding, the worst tornadoes, the worst wind, the worst hail. And sometimes it is bad, but it's just interesting. Maybe my memory isn't as good as it once was, but it seems like, several years ago when I was a little younger, 10, maybe 20 years ago, I don't remember quite the hype all the time about storms. Every winter storm is a polar vortex kind of thing. Every tornado, every thunderstorm is and a lot of times they end up not being that big of a deal. I think it's just part of the hype. Anyways, so over this weekend, things escalated in the war with Ukraine and Russia. Apparently, Putin was in his helicopter going to visit an area, troops, something like that, and Ukraine attempted to take him out. They sent a swarm of attack drones to the helicopter. They were unsuccessful. Russia was able to defend itself. But since then, Russia has retaliated and sent, I guess what they're saying is the largest drone and missile attack on Kiev since the start of the war. There's videos and news reports coming out that the attack was awful, that the civilian casualty, dozen or so, maybe more of civilian casualties, that, homes were attacked, hospitals were attacked, schools, all this kind of stuff. And so it looks really bad. Donald Trump has fired back online and has called Putin crazy, said that he's gone nuts, he's gone crazy. He thought that we could work together with him, but this is just ridiculous. And of course, then he went on to say that this isn't really his war, that this is something that Biden started, that if he had been president, this would, and we've heard all that, and maybe it's true. But the point is that things are escalating. And I think the possibility of what we heard before the inauguration, that, he was going to be able to get in there and come to some kind of peaceful, agreement, is probably out the window at this point. Things are looking as bad as they ever have in that arena. And it's kind of the same way down with Israel and Gaza and Hamas. Israel has made it very clear that they have no interest in working out some kind of peaceful negotiations, that they're not going to stop until Hamas is completely out of that area. And they want to remove all the Palestinians out of Gaza Strip. They've made that statement, a couple of million of them. And then it's kind of the same way over in Iran. According to the White House, they're trying to make some headway in working out a peaceful deal with Iran. But Iran is stating that they're not backing down. They're not backing down from their, nuclear proliferations. They're not going to slow down. They're not going to back off of any of that. And that's a red line, and that they will not come to any kind of deal that would require them to back away from that. So the three kind of hot spots right now when it comes to potential involvement of the United States in a war are just seeming to heat up. And it doesn't look like that there's anything around the corner that would be peaceful. The whole Russia-Ukraine thing, I mean, it's been going on for years now. Even our own military experts have come out recently and stated that it's probably going to last several years more. I believe J.D. Vance even made some kind of comment on that it was probably going to last a long time still. I think the question is at what point is America involved more, more aggressively, with the president making statements that that Putin has gone crazy, that the killing is off the charts, that it's murderous, or that it's too much. It's starting to sound like that the stage is being set for the United States to get more involved, maybe even boots on the ground. Well, this has gone too far. The death toll is too high. Putin won't stop. He's crazy. He's a madman. It's just senseless killing. We have to get in there to stop this. Even though this wasn't my war to begin with, we can't just sit back and watch all this senseless killing. And I believe it was Donald Trump that also made the statement yesterday, something like that, over the weekend, that now they do believe that Putin is going to try to take over all of Ukraine. So that's changed. It was just those areas in eastern Ukraine. Now it's that he's going to take over all of Ukraine. So it sounds like to me that a narrative is starting to be spun that would give justification for the United States to say, all right, we've tried peaceful means, we've tried, buddying up with Putin, we've tried, ostracizing Zelensky, we've done everything, and nothing is working. So we're going to come in with, the big fist and boot of the United States military and step in and stop this our way. The problem is that, and I've made this statement, talked about this before, is that as bad as it may look for Russia, number one, Russia's now, they're very well trained when it comes to war. They've been doing this for a while. So now they have, training that's based on their active combat that they've had over the last few years, where the United States doesn't have that. They have been preparing for this for years. They have been even recently been building their ranks and building their military capabilities. So in a lot of ways, plus it's on their own land. They have that. They have the home advantage. So I don't think especially a ground war, especially if it became a ground war, boots on the ground, tanks and stuff, I don't really think that the United States would have a huge advantage over them. I think that it would be a struggle. I'm not saying that we would lose. We might, but I don't think it would be a swift win. The United States hasn't fought, not just in a ground war in several years, but it hasn't fought a ground war in those conditions against a military that could be equally comparable, and it hasn't fought a war in those conditions. The last few wars we fought have been in the desert. So any of our military personnel that's had any kind of experience in combat, it's been in deserts. So we would have a lot of disadvantages. Plus, we've been sending a lot of stuff over to Ukraine. Our supplies are down. And I think that there has to be some people within the Pentagon telling the president, yeah, we need to get involved. We need to do something, but we can't because we don't have the capability right now. I think it could be disastrous. And Russia has a long, centuries-long history of being able to lose a lot to win a war. Their mentality is very different. And so while it may not seem quite significant yet, the narrative, the language does seem to be changing in regards to this war. And I think it's something to watch out for. I mean, there's obviously things going on in the Middle East too. We've talked about that. I just mentioned it. With Iran, is they're not backing down. They said that they have no interest. They're not coming to the table on this issue. Israel's not backing down on ridding Gaza of Hamas. That they're not going to compromise. And then Russia seems to be doing the same thing. So the United States, Donald Trump has come in like a whirlwind in a lot of ways. And yet these nations are saying, listen, you may act tough. You may think that you're the top dog, but we're not interested in talking to you. We're going to do it this way. And so it'll be interesting to see. I think that there's becoming a growing possibility of us more being involved in Russia. There, I don't know. I mean, the next few days, the next few weeks will tell. But it almost feels like that the tone has changed, and it's being done to kind of start to soften the blow or to prepare the American public, you know, for us potentially being involved more directly over the next few weeks, few months. And so it would be a bloody war. Okay. If we get involved, we start calling up troops. And if we become very heavily involved, I think a draft would be very likely to come up with the amount of troops that would be needed to take on Russia on their own turf, with all their experience and the fact that they've been building their military ranks by about 50,000 troops a month for the last few months. Yeah, it would be a bloodbath. And I know a lot of people, we were all hoping that maybe when Donald Trump got in that he could fix this situation. But it doesn't look likely at this point. And like I said, Donald Trump himself, his tone is changing. And it could very easily lead us down the path of this guy's crazy. It's a bloodbath. It's senseless killing. We have to get in and stop this. That's not being said yet, but it's quite possible that we could get to that point. And so you should be getting prepared for that. Because if we do get to that point, it's not even about whether or not we would win. It's how much damage we would have to take to get there. Because it'd be a bloodbath, folks. If you don't know much about Russian military history, you should probably learn a little bit. It's quite interesting. And they are very willing to throw tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of troops into a meat grinder just to come out on the other side okay. They're okay with it. And the United States is typically not. So this is something to keep an eye on and to continue to prepare for, because I believe, and I could be wrong on this, but I believe that if we did get directly involved with Russia, it would very much affect us here at the homeland. Our economy, supply chain, all sorts of things. There's been talk for many years now of that Russia still has multiple, many operatives in the United States, potentially in cities all over America, maybe even every county. And so there's the potential would be high for a lot of things happening. So anyways, I would definitely get being prepared for this one. I mean, I know we should prepare for all of it, right? It's disaster and destruction around every corner every day. But this one seems to be pretty serious. And I think just the tone change in Donald Trump is something worthy of taking notice of, and probably getting yourselves a little bit more ready. Folks, it's time to get your houses in order and to prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next video.